has apparently been hit by an Israeli airstrike as Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vows to keep military operations going as long as necessary to neutralize Hamas. Former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense in the Reagan administration and Fox News national security analyst KT McFarland joins us live now to talk about this and more. Hello, KT.
Hi there.
I want to talk to you about, you raised some interesting points about a community or a group that could be potentially a source of support for Israel that really hasn't been the case in the past.
Yeah, what happens in the past? And these Hamas-Israeli fights happen every couple of years. And what happens is Hamas uses its own children and civilians as human shields, so the casualty count goes up. And then the whole world, including the Arab world, condemns Israel. Well, what's happened this time is a little bit different. Now, certainly the civilian casualties are up. The human shields are being used by Hamas. But the moderate Sunni Arab states, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, they have not been as critical of Israel as they have in the past. Why? Because a couple of things have happened in the last 3 years. Well, the Arab Spring and the rise of radical Islam, ISIS, the groups that are going around from Iraq to Syria, destabilizing governments. And so the Saudis, the Egyptians, and the others, they look at this and say, we could be next. Therefore, maybe what we should do is help Israel defeat this group now.
And a savvy move by Prime Minister Netanyahu to actually mention or kind of highlight those that may be coming down this path.
Yeah, and you're smart to point that out, because yesterday, Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel, he made a statement, and he said all the typical things. We're going to protect Israel, we're going to fight this, and to do all the things we have to do. You expected that. But he threw in one line that nobody's noticed except you, Shannon, and he said, what's happened is we've had some extraordinary relationships with countries in the region, presenting us with new opportunities for allies. I think that was a signal to the Egyptians, to the Saudis, to others to say, we may not see eye to eye on everything, but what we do have in common is radical jihad is against all of our interests. So I think that's why you see the Egyptians, particularly President Sisi, stepping forward. I met with Sisi last year, and he talked about the threat that radical Islam posed for Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood, and also al-Qaeda setting up shop in the Sinai Peninsula.
Well, and speaking of violent jihad, I want to talk a little bit about some news that we've gotten today regarding the Islamic State, which goes by ISIS or other names. Some reports that it's making progress in areas that may give it access to oil fields. And of course, that means more revenue. And you control those oil fields, you've really got the upper hand. What do you make of that and the latest on the situation there?
Okay, well, ISIS is probably the best funded terrorist group in the world right now. It may have access to some $2 billion. It is seizing banks. It has seized oil fields. Now, it's in a part of Iraq where there isn't much oil, but there is oil to the north, and that's the Kurdish area. They have made inroads there in the last couple of days, and what's happened as a result of ISIS, this Islamic army that's moving, is that they're pushing a lot of civilians out. They're pushing a lot of refugees, particularly Christians, because the Christians, if ISIS gets their hands on Christians, they force them to either convert or they kill them and they behead them. So that's why you're seeing a refugee flow that's going north into Kurdistan. And the Kurds are our natural allies in this fight.
All right. KT, always great to have your insights and expertise. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shannon.
Well, still ahead.